Welcome back, everybody, to the Quick Hitters Show presented by Inside Texas. I'm your host, Evan Veith, as always, joined by Next Talks Texas right next to me. Baseball is winding down when it comes to the overall talk. So we're talking some football here, Nash. Before we get into that, make sure you're going over to InsideTexas.com and checking out this awesome summer sale. 50% off the Ultimate Fan Bundle, Inside Texas for your Texas needs, on three rivals for everything else national recruiting. Recruiting is going crazy right now, Nash. So now's a great time to go over there and check out Inside Texas and on three and rivals. But we're not talking about recruits. We're not talking about who's playing in tonight's College World Series game. We're talking about Arch Manning, and I know this is a guy who gets talked about a lot every offseason, and his name is floated around, Nash. But I wasn't even really cherry picking for a stat, but I've been working on an article that just talks about Arch isn't quite getting the same hype he was last season, even though in my opinion I think he deserves the hype much more than he did before. And I was trying to find ways to quantify that. And for you, Nash, did you feel like there was a shift at any point in the season, like one game or one time when Arch really stepped up and that's when you saw his best throughout the rest of the year?
Yeah, I'm trying to think because off the top of my head, I'm blanking on the schedule, but it was the game after Mississippi State or Kentucky,
Yeah,
I believe.
Vanderbilt was the game right after
Vanderbilt,
Mississippi
yeah.
State.
So that's really, I think even Mississippi State, you saw a lot of growth in him. But like I think he had the concussion concern at the end, so you just kind of didn't know move forward. Vanderbilt is really when you start to see him really get like the I don't want to say the training wheels come off, but that's when you saw him really start to light it up.
Yeah, and I don't think you'll see a lot of Texas fans, analysts, national analysts trying to defend much about his early season, right? Ohio State week one looked rattled, didn't have the best performance. Texas loses that game. Takes them really until week four in the out of conference slate to show up and really dominate a defense that was at a lower level. Struggled at times. I don't think the Florida loss was on him, but he had his inaccuracies, and the Oklahoma game was good from him, but then week afterwards, Kentucky was a disaster. Texas probably loses that game if not for Ryan Niblett heroics. And then Mississippi State, like you mentioned, the points were there, but the efficiency wasn't quite there. Injury as well. But they taught November is really when college football takes that turn, right, Nash? Like that was when that Vanderbilt game was. It was November 1st, day after Halloween. And that's generally when teams are tested, right? Your depth is tested, the ability to respond to injury, to big factors. That's when a lot of the big games are. Of course, that's when Texas versus Texas A&M plays. So those like 4 games to end the year really test a team. And so I just set out to look at how did the best quarterbacks who are returning next year, how did they play against Power 5 teams only in November and onward? So that includes the college football playoff, but just when you're playing good teams November and onwards, how'd you do? And that's going to kind of instantly segue us into this graphic and this chart, Nash, which you see I have about 12, 13 names of some of the best returning quarterbacks. This is mostly players who played in a Power 5 conference last year, had the playing time. So Sam Levitt wasn't here because he was injured. But it's a pretty good list of names and really, NFL draft guys, Heisman hype guys. When you look at this, Nash, what are you first seeing, and what stat maybe sticks out to you most?
I mean, first off, when I'm looking at this, I think it's important to note too that this wasn't just some weak stretch of football. Probably Arkansas was the weakest team that we played in this stretch, but these teams are Vanderbilt, Georgia, Texas A&M, even Michigan State or Michigan. I mean, these are for the most part top 15 ranked teams at the end of the season, and then you got Michigan filtered in there too. So these are all high level opponents, but for me, I mean, honestly, the one that sticks out the most is the adjusted yards per attempt. That's not just yards per completion, right? This is yards per pass thrown, and they adjust it a little bit to filter out some of the things that a quarterback can control. But you pair that with the total yards per game, total touchdowns per game. I mean, Arch Manning really was doing really well.
Yeah, what I was trying to capture here is both volume, right? Yards per game, touchdowns per game, but sometimes volume is out of your control as a quarterback. You're a prisoner to your scheme. So someone like Marcel Reed down here has great volume numbers because they ask him to do a lot, and yards per game includes passing and rushing. So that's where Reed does well. He adds the rushing yards, but efficiency wise, you're seeing he's near the bottom in both of these because even with some of his great pass catchers, that just wasn't their forte to end the year. Was a processed attack from their quarterback. It was a lot of yak yardage, which does help the quarterback a lot, but that's a lot of receiver creation. And He had the times where he put the ball on the ground, interceptions plus fumbles per game, and didn't score a lot. I think the quarterback that, as you're seeing for those who have this on the screen, like Arch Manning's in the green for pretty much everything, right? Second in total yards per game, first in touchdowns per game, tied for the best numbers in interceptions plus fumbles per game, best yards per attempt, good, not perfect passer rating, not the best there, but a 4-1 record here. Trinidad Chambliss for me pops out right here, and that's including some playoff stats, but the most yards per game on some of the best efficiency, like not turning the ball over, that's really, really good. I'm also looking at Julian Sayin here because this is not great volume, but his efficiency is tremendous, right? 9.05 adjusted yards per attempt. Like with that adjusting, it factors in, touchdowns and interceptions and drops as well. So he's looking really, really good here, but it's hard for me, Nash, to look at all these quarterbacks, especially even like Dante Moore, who's supposed to be the number 2 pick next year, and say, why are they above Arch Manning, who was just in his first year starting?
Yeah, I mean, so another stat that we don't have lists on here that kind of like almost adds to that is you got Arch Manning. He leads the nation, or not leads the nation, leads all these selected teams and players in points above average, which is basically trying to filter out the things that a quarterback can't control using EPA. Directly behind him is Julian Sayin and Dante Moore. So really, you do see like those like top group of guys, but yeah, it really. I think that a lot of people kind of almost underrated Arch Manning towards the end of the year. You look at his total touchdowns to interceptions plus fumbles. It's a little bit better than Chambliss, and Chambliss was the only one who limited turnovers as much as Arch Manning did.
Yeah, I mean Gunnar Stockton was there too, and I think Gunnar Stockton's a pretty underrated college quarterback, especially just because he's got that winner mentality to him, and the yardage overall is not going to be there, but it's going to be efficient. He's not going to turn the ball over. He'll score touchdowns, and he's right up there in those stats. But it really is it's those three are the only ones that are showing off that level of touchdown to turnover ratio and that kind of excellence there. And I look at Dante Moore again, like this is the other quarterback who's expected to go number 1, and I know some of this is including the college football playoff, and you cherry pick against it in his James Madison game because that's a G5 game. But either way, like some of these results just weren't that great for him. He wasn't great against Texas Tech. He was really bad against Indiana in their loss. And so while you can note that some of these quarterbacks made their way through a college football playoff run, Stockton included, Reed, Mateer, Arch didn't play worse teams than a lot of these, right? Like Georgia, Vanderbilt, A&M, Michigan. The only other quarterback who played 4 top 20 teams was Dante Moore. So the level of competition for Arch is right up there, and especially with Georgia. But you won 3 games. One of them was against a top 10 team, and Vanderbilt was top 10 when they played them, top 15 overall. So, I wouldn't be concerned with Arch argument's sake, like that he's not playing the right amount of competition or wasn't tested. I guess for you, Nash, like where would you say would be when it comes to profiling for 2027, the biggest knock on Manning is, or what part of his profile is maybe not quite as secure as a Chambliss or more or another quarterback?
I mean, if you're looking at that, it's probably going to be something like on target percent, how much he threw the ball on target, because there was times that he really kind of lacked the ability to throw when you get to like this level of quarterback play with these top guys, you're really kind of like nitpicking here because he did. There's catchable balls, and then on target is just like perfect pass. So he did kind of lack a little bit in that. He's like 5th from the bottom of these group of guys, but catchable passes, he's firmly in the middle. So it really is nitpicking. But if that's one area that's one area that you would like to see him improve, because I mean, there was a time a good example off the top of my mind is the pass to Ryan Wingo for the touchdown versus Texas A&M.
Yeah.
Ryan Wingo really kind of bailed him out of a bad pass there.
Yeah, and I will say in that respect, I think Arch has also seen some, talking about your wins above average and adjusted yards per attempt. There's been some drop problems that have kind of hurt his overall numbers, like just the yardage flat out, and also that hurts your efficiency as well, especially because it trickles down to how many drives you're getting, how many extra plays you're getting. But moving forward on to 2026 and into the 2027's part of the season, Arch Manning was the Heisman favorite last year, and that was coming off of nothing, right? Like he'd started 2 games, appeared in another one, I had some running attempts later in the year, but this wasn't like a slam dunk Heisman contender from the season before. And that was when he had a lot of hype, Nash. I mean, just a ton surrounding him and his name. And do you feel like right now, despite what we're showing you, like that he was arguably the best quarterback to end the year, if not him, Trinidad Chambliss, do you feel like even with that and knowing that Texas is going to end up being probably a top 3 to 5 team in the rankings, that he's gone a little underrated in some of these respects?
Are you ready to love your kitchen and bathroom again? Luxe Kitchen and Bath will bring that to life. Luxe has been offering high-end kitchen and bathroom remodels for 3 generations throughout the greater Austin area. With 5-star review after 5-star review on Google and Facebook and an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau, you can put your faith in Luxe Kitchen and Bath's award-winning designers and skilled craftspeople to bring your dream vision to life. But that's not all. Luxe's all-star team also provides full home remodels, large additions, and even commercial build-outs as well. So call Luxe Kitchen and Bath at 833-358-LUXE today, or visit luxekitchenbath.com to discover where quality meets luxury and begin the process of transforming your home. Get your free quote today by calling 833-358-LUXE. That's LUXE, or by visiting luxekitchenbath.com. Contact info is in the description.
Yeah, I mean, it really does feel like the hype this year should have been where it was to start the season last year, and where he was at the start of the season last year should be where he's at this year. I mean, like we said, it's not like he's doing this bunch of lesser teams. He played his best versus the best teams that he played against. Now, toss Ohio State out the window on that one, right? But these are not bad teams that he's playing. Like, these are really, really good teams that I believe. I mean, so you had Georgia, Texas A&M, Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt was just on the edge of the playoffs. That's almost 3 playoff teams right there.
Knocked him out, practically.
So it really, it does feel like the hype is almost reversed, and it should be a lot higher this year. But I do think that's going to be a little bit of an advantage for Arch Manning.
Yeah, I've seen Heisman odds and tried to look around to see how many. And there are some where he's even, tied for first place, and he's pretty much consensusly top 2 or 3. And I understand Jeremiah Smith always being there, but the name that keeps popping above is CJ Carr. Like that's the one that gets the hype. And it's just funny to me because I know Carr is a year younger, so there's maybe more of a blossoming opportunity. But Carr played a lot of easy teams to end the year. Like, they were not really tested, and sub 200 yards per game in those games. Not really using his feet a ton to get a lot of value, and good efficiency stats like passer ratings right at the top, good yards per attempt. But part of the Heisman buzz is you got to have the volume there. Like, you got to be able to do it for a whole season and get those accrued stats and those numbers. And I sort of think with Arch Manning right now, Nash, when you're looking at like a bell curve, like people at the start of the season were going, just trust Arch Manning. He's a Manning. And then now we're at the point where people are in the middle where it's like, oh, here, this. They didn't perform well last year. And then you go to the expert side and it's like, just trust Arch Manning. Like, you're seeing the kind of NFL talent he is. You're seeing the numbers he's putting up to end the year. That's where I stand. But if not Carr, maybe including Carr, if it weren't to be Manning, who do you think are the primary contenders for the QB1 of this either class or just Heisman voting?
I mean, it's going to sound like a cop-out, but either Gunnar Stockton or Trinidad Chambliss. I think that those 2 dudes are really legit. I think Gunnar Stockton, he's not going to blow anybody away with the statistics that he puts out there, but he's really consistent. And he has that like just tough dude personality to him. And we saw that obviously coming to play when Texas faced Georgia in the SEC championship. But Trinidad Chambliss, I mean, it'll be interesting to see how he does without Lane Kiffin as an offensive guy. But he was talked about really highly in the draft, and then when he decided to come back, they don't talk highly about dudes in the draft for no reason. So I mean, he should be one of these front runners.
Yeah, Chambliss probably should have been off to the NFL and maybe even been a early second round pick. But I think he would probably be the guy who I'm going entering the year. Week 1 win a game. It's hard to pick against Trinidad Chambliss after what he did last year and the run to the playoffs. And he made the semifinals off of really him solo carrying at times that Ole Miss team. Whereas Dante Moore made it that far, but the path was a little easier. It was a lot of his defense actually doing some of the dirty work there. Some playmakers at running back as well. So I think it would be Chambliss 1, Manning 2, Sayin 3 for me. I do think with Sayin, like, he was a young quarterback. They're going to ask him to do a little more this year, and I think he's going to be able to step up to that task. And we're looking at these yards per game numbers blossoming a little bit, but he doesn't run the same way. And there's reason to kind of question him as a quarterback, just with how how poorly their offense did down the stretch, given like Jeremiah Smith and Cardinal Tate was who he's throwing to. Now he gets Jeremiah Smith again, so that's a fact that's always going to play into account, and why maybe Stockton gets a little bit of a bump down, just because there's not quite the receiver play at Georgia that there is at Ohio State. But any final thoughts on this, Nash? Arch, his end of the year, the way he finished the year, so what you're seeing on the screen, or just in general, like 2027 hype. What are your last impressions about this discussion?
I mean, the only thing that I would add to is when you're looking at bust percentage in plays. So it's basically EPA plays that result in passing plays that result in a -1 EPA. Arch Manning was last on this, so he obviously he was making some really good plays, but even more so, he was limiting the bad plays to a high level.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that you've seen with Steve Sarkisian preach about. Like, it's all about the ball. Turnovers will kill you in the sport. The last thing that I would note is, man, he really looked a lot better in the pocket. His pocket presence. He did. The only time he really ran in that last stretch of games was versus Texas A&M, but he looked like he was navigating the pocket. He looked, while he's facing pressure, calm under pressure, and I think that there's something to be said about. I mean, up to the November stretch of games, he was under constant pressure. It was almost like trial by fire, and then he just kind of like got used to the fire. So that would be my last note, is that even if he's under a lot of pressure this year, again, it does feel like, hey, there's reason to be excited moving forward, because as long as he doesn't do bad when he's not pressured, I mean, there's not really going to be too much difference.
Yeah, I mean, he's no perfect quarterback. He has his mistakes. But
no one is.
It does feel like a lot of maybe the mistakes or the turnovers late last year came in games like Florida, where they just needed miracles, and they needed to come back, and that's and when he was struggling against like Kentucky, it wasn't that he was turning the ball over. He just wasn't converting the first downs that you needed to. So if you're talking about a quarterback that limits turnovers, like we saw, in multiple numbers that we've talked about today, while also having the explosiveness and the NFL caliber of quarterback, it's going to combine into a pretty good year for Arch Manning, and one where I think he's deserving of having that preseason type of Heisman hype going into it.
In the Florida game too, that game felt like he was trying to play hero ball to keep Texas in the game, and that's when you started to see some interceptions come because he was trying to force a ball to make a big play. And I think that's one of those games that he learns from, saying, you know what, just stay steady, and we'll be able to get ourselves back into this game. But I mean, Texas, they still, you look at this at the end, they were throwing the ball down 8 into the end zone. So you remove some of those interceptions, and man, we actually might have had a chance to fight back into that game and come back and win it. So that feels like one of those games that he learns from. But
yeah, that's how it is. I do think that the tape matches some of the numbers that we've looked at, especially when it comes to how you're impacting the game past just a box score stat and an interception versus yardage that maybe doesn't have the same impact in one game as it does in another. But especially with Oklahoma, I think that's going to do it for us, Nash, on the Inside Texas Quick Hitter Show. Make sure you're checking out InsideTexas.com, and one of the best sales we've ever had, 50% off this summer, Ultimate Fan Bundle, Inside Texas for your recruiting and football news, as well as baseball for those that are keeping track of the portal, On 3 for national news, and Rivals for your recruiting. Recruiting is at a big point right now for Texas. Really looking forward to what they're going to do to finish out this recruiting process in 2027. Nash, thank you as always. It's going to do it for us on the Inside Texas Show.